my name's Ruth. The Open Rights Group are actually a pretty new organisation. We've been around since 2005. We were formed by 1,000 geeks at an open technology conference who decided that they wanted a group who would fight for internet freedoms, and they said, let's just set one up. Said 1,000 people agreed to pledge £5 a month to form the organisation. And since then, we've campaigned on lots of digital issues: online censorship, data protection, privacy, open data, copyright reform. It's a pretty broad list. So I'm going to talk about 3 areas of our work that I think are particularly relevant to the ECF community. And those are surveillance, censorship, and copyright. And I'm going to talk about surveillance first. For us, the biggest issue there is the Communications Data Bill. I don't know how much you know about it, but it's a currently proposed bill that would order online companies like ISPs and mail providers to collect specific data sets of electronic communications information. So that's like emails and Facebook updates and Xbox Live Chat. And so they collect all that information and then retain it for up to a year. And from that information, they'd get where you said it, who you said it to, when you said it, those kind of timestamps. And then all that data could be accessed by the police and various other public bodies that are specified under RIPA, which is the Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act. Choice seems difficult to say. And all they need to access your data is the belief that it's necessary and proportionate. They don't need a warrant, and the decision of whether it's necessary and proportionate comes from the people who want to access your data. They just self-regulate on whether or not they should access it. And the problem with this is, if it came into law, you couldn't promise confidentiality to whistleblowers or supporters or clients anymore. All electronic communications are going to be monitored. And unless we all want to go back to using pigeons, you'd have to just trust in the safeguards that are set up. So we've been campaigning against this bill since the first proposal, and in part due to the evidence that all gave. The Joint Committee scrutinising the bill rejected the draft version and told the Home Office to go back to the drawing board, which was like a really good victory for us. However, the government are still pushing for the bill, and whilst they try and formulate it all over again, we've been keeping the campaign going. And so we've just launched a new campaign to ask the public to demand a consultation from the Home Office, because that was one of the recommendations by the scrutinising committee, and the Home Office have done a kind of haphazard, well, we'll speak to some people and invite them to the office. That's a consultation. And we're saying, no, that's not. You have to actually ask the people, not some tech companies. That's not a consultation. So if you want to help us on that, you can go on our website and write to the Home Office. So then I'm going to jump to talking about censorship. So one of our other issues is campaigning against default on internet filters. And this is something that happens by default on most phone networks. A lot of people aren't aware, but most phone companies have an automatic adult content block because there's an assumption that any phone could be accessed by a child or owned by a child, so therefore every contract is treated as though it is owned by or accessed by a child. And the idea is that everything that's unsuitable for under 18s will be blocked, which sounds like it's a really good idea, but the problem is that filters are never effective. They rely on algorithms, so they always miss blocking things that they should block, or overblock things in a really stupid way. So we've got a long list of websites that have been blocked by mobile phone providers, like breastfeeding help sites, or for instance, the new wine churches were recently blocked at Christmas because they were classified as alcohol websites because a filter doesn't pick up on a metaphor. And Orange has as their list of categories that they block the phrase esoteric behaviour, which is basically saying, we're going to keep everything weird off the internet. How are you going to do that? So it effectively adds up to a system of censorship across all the UK phone networks. And I hope you could see that that kind of category could cause your own website's risk depending on what you work on. So like if you have sites on suicide help or sexual support, sites for sexual minorities, those kinds of things can often get blocked by filters because they just use a word or a set of phrases that they pick up on. So if your site has drug abuse, even if you're a site for helping people recovering from drug abuse, the internet filters can go, oh, it's a site about drug abuse. No. And even where it is children using the internet, the people they're meant to protect, they're still blocking far more than sexual content. And this idea that we have to protect children from everything controversial gives a notion that children are helpless human beings who just have to be protected, and they can't make informed choices for themselves. And it's not like when you hit 18, you suddenly gain intelligence. I'm going to probably have to rush this. So, yeah, basically, we think that kids should be able to make decisions about sex and other things like that, and the filters are too broad. And we want to stop the government who are proposing to put that kind of filter to the whole of the internet, not just mobile phones, where they currently are. We have a website called block.org.uk, where if you find any block sites on your phone network, you can give them to us and we phone up the networks and challenge them. Oh, I was going to really quickly talk about copyright as well, which now I probably don't have time for. I was quickly going to say, we also campaign against the UK copyright law block on parody, and we've had an ongoing campaign against not being allowed to use media and film for copyright, for parody purposes, because it stops people being able to criticize big corporations, because it's like, oh, our logo is copyrighted, so you can't use it. So we've been campaigning to say copyright should always have an exception for parody, and this is hopefully actually going to happen. There was this thing called the Hargreaves Review, which proposed this copyright exception in parody. And then the government released a response to it after we responded to the consultation. And I know a lot of people here did as well. So that should be implemented in October. Can I have an ending sentence? So I just wanted to say, we've been working on all these issues and lots of other issues that I think are relevant. So if you want to help us with any of our work, you can talk to me afterwards and tell your supporters, write to the Home Office, and you should join org, because we're still only £5 a month.